Okay, so we're going to do a 12-minute mobility workout. So the idea being that rather than it just being the gentle movements, which you can make it, if you feel that need to just push yourself for a short period of time, that little bit of a high intensity workout, then this gives you the best of both worlds. So I'm going to be using a Bosu ballast ball, so this ball with ballast on the bottom of it to give it a bit of stability. Just to make it a bit more demanding, so if you wish you can make it a bit more challenging. However, you want to start off just using a bench or a chair, something like that. And actually, we also need to set the timer as well, so we're doing 30 seconds of effort with 30 seconds of resting time. The idea being that if you find that's too easy, you can always up that to about 40 seconds. But we'll start off with 30 seconds and we're going to be doing a knee drive. So get yourself in a press up position like so. And off we go. So the idea is just squeezing the knee in towards the elbow so you can feel there's some tension in the stomach, shoulders having to work, but primarily it's that mobility round the hips and lower back that we're trying to work on. So it's nothing frantic, nice and steady. And rest. Side. And then lying down on your back. Second exercise is going to be a reverse curl, but we're starting knees bent, hips to about 90 degrees, and we're only moving your knees in towards the shoulders like so, and back to that 90 degree position. Off we go. Squeeze the knees in, keeping that tension in the stomach all the way through the movement. So you are very deliberately squeezing your knees towards the shoulders. Controlling out, not letting the stomach relax, it stays tense. Squeezing in. Control. Of course, if you find that 30 seconds is too much, well, that's absolutely fine. Just take the extra bit of resting time. And rest. So that's working through the stomach, and again, it's some of that mobility around the lower back. So the idea is that you can do this without any equipment at all. So even if you don't have a chair available, you can use the floor, although that's then sort of easy but can be more demanding, but we want to make sure it's the stomach that's doing the work. Next one is a tilt. So it's sort of a deadlift type movement, but on one leg, I'm simply tilting, coming down towards the floor for that tension around the hip. Squeeze the legs, standing really tall. And again. So my back foot is there to give me a bit of balance, but isn't taking the weight. And you're always tilting to make sure we get this tension around the hip. You can see every single movement we're doing is slow and steady, very deliberate. And rest. And I'll do the same on the other leg. So now we're looking at engaging around the hips and the hamstrings, helping improve that mobility around the hips and the back. That 30 seconds doesn't seem to last a particularly long time. So on to the other side and tilt. Feel the tension in the back of the legs, squeeze the back of the eye up. Nice and steady. Pushing the hips back. Squeeze through the leg on the way up. Definitely squeezing the bum as you get to the top of the movement. And rest. I'll start to warm up a bit there. So what we'll do now is repeat that same cycle 2 more times. I'm going to show you a progression with the Bosu this time. So you can either squeeze the knees straight forwards or squeeze it across to the opposite elbow. So it's a bit more demanding in terms of that rotation and mobility around the hip. You're never in a hurry doing these. I just feel like it's very deliberate work. And rest. And then lie down on your back. So we can make this one a little bit more challenging. The idea is we want to keep your back fairly flat, so we're not going to let the legs drop further out where we get the arching and an awful lot of effort behind the stomach. That's not the aim of the exercise, it's more about that engagement through the hip flexors. But we can make it more challenging on the balance by having your arms crossed over the shoulders and keep it really controlled. So the slower you do the movement, the more you've got to keep the tension because there's less momentum. So if I just swing the legs in, it's not that difficult. But if you do it really slowly, squeezing inwards, hips slowly lifting off, all the way in, and then controlling back, out, and rest. Obviously tougher. And again, those glutes and hamstrings engaged again. So this time, it's not so much about, we don't want to make it just a complete balance because then you can get thrown off quite a lot and it's then more work for the foot rather than the hip. But just keeping even less weight from the back leg. So you tilt the back leg just there, bounces out at the end of the movement. Slowly squeezing up. Really tense the glutes, you get to the top. Pushing back. So my foot's almost sliding on the floor. It's not being used all the time. Against that really controlled movement, lots of tension in the leg, tilting. See, balance went a bit there, and squeezing up, and rest again. So what's that? 3 repetitions, 4 at most. So it's quite slow. And that's it. It doesn't have to be loads of repetitions. The point is that if we're doing it slow, we're getting more tension in the muscles, which helps to activate them, which is the whole purpose of this. It's not about anything other than getting activation, but feeling like it's a bit of a demanding, uplifting, energising, and off we go, that tilt again, energising workout. So you're not tired at the end, but you feel ready to take on the day. Squeeze your glutes at the top, and then tilt. As you're tilting far enough that you feel there's lots of tension in the glutes and hamstrings. Squeezing up. And again. And squeezing up and rest. One more round to go. So again, this time I'm going to take the knees over to the opposite elbow again, but I'm also going to slow it down even more. In that press up position. Bring that knee straight across towards the elbow. And back to the floor. Immediately the leg moves forwards, but slowly. Back. There's less momentum, greater contraction in the muscles. Try and take it as close to the elbow as you can. And rest. So again, hold on the balance and the arms over the shoulders. Legs coming up. Wait for the bleep. we go. Very slowly, deliberately, knees coming in towards the shoulders. Feel the hips lifted off the floor, maybe even your lower back slightly. Squeezing it in. And slowly, 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 controlling back, out. Whilst you're breathing, keep that tension in the stomach, don't let it relax. Squeeze it in. And see, that's already 30 seconds. We've only done 1.5 movements. And rest the legs down. And I can sit up again. I've got one more set on the tilt. So we're going to keep it slow, but I'm also now going to take the opposite hand and reach it across. So as I tilt, and I'm reaching across to the outside of the foot, and then it's just more tension around the hip itself then. So each time I tilt, reaching across that rotation. Nice and controlled. And up. So, again, 3 repetitions there. It shows it was nice and slow. And I'll do the same on the other leg, and then we're done. So like I said earlier, this should leave you feeling energized rather than fatigued. Hand reaching across, tilt, and hand comes right out over the front of the leg. Slowly back up. Woo. Squeeze your bum. See, that's why I want to keep the foot resting slightly on the floor, so it does aid the balance, so you can keep it as a really strong contraction around the hip. Squeeze your bum as you get to the top. One more. Reach across. And squeezing up. And relax. And there we have it.